refining sugar. It is still about physical labor to this very day. So it's not just about parents of sports. All black parents are docile. They're docile when it comes to about physical labor. That might be Gerald Palmer doing that. That might be Gerald Palmer or Michelle Stewart. I think that's one of them on the line. For me, when I saw the story about the New Jersey wrestler, the young brother who was forced to cut his hair, separate from the school law piece, and I'm gonna hit that quickly, but the bigger issue here, this is a steamroller. This whole thing about dictating the lives of athletes isn't new, but I think it received renewed vigor in the post-Colin Kaepernick campaign era. In other words, when we saw people like Stephen A. Smith and Shaquille O'Neal and Ray Lewis and Jalen Rose and all these black athletes not only not stand with Colin Kaepernick, not only did they not stand with Colin Kaepernick, they spoke against Colin Kaepernick. When the white power structure of America saw that prominent black athletes, in this case retired athletes and sports pundits, are willing to speak out against one of their own who's speaking up and against for police genocide, that reassured the power structure that we have the athletes in our pocket. And when you have the more successful and prominent athletes speak out against the quote unquote not as successful prominent athletes, that sends a message to those mid-level and lower level athletes that you better do what you're told, because the superstars are clearly aligned with white power. The superstars are clearly aligned with white power. Had the superstars came out in support of Colin Kaepernick, that would have been a totally different situation. But instead of supporting Colin Kaepernick, all these guys, Stephen A. Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, even Deion Sanders, who I believe lives right here in Dallas, they really bothered me. That was a very weak black man. For them to be athletes, it's ironic because athletes physically are alphas. They're strong, they're powerful, they dominate. Physically, they're alphas, but psychologically, when it comes to white power and politically, they're beta males. Okay, politically and psychologically, most black athletes are beta males when it comes to the white power structure. This is a big irony in sports. This is a big irony in sports because we see them dunking and catching balls and tackling people and beating folks up. But when it comes to dealing with the white power structure, they automatically metamorphose into beta males. So anyhow, the momentum of the Kaepernick campaign spilled over, and it has infected everybody in how they deal with athletes. I mean, let's look at it. If we can get the richest, most powerful black men in the world, NFL players, the richest, most powerful black men in the world, NFL players, if we can get them to kowtow to white power, how much easier is it for us to get black high school athletes to kowtow to white power? You see, so a lot of this is our fault. But dealing with that situation specifically, obviously a couple things jump right out at me. Number one, it's a violation of federal law to force an individual child to change their dress code or change their hairstyle, okay, unless that hairstyle in some way, okay, disrupts or interferes with the academic process of the school. Okay, so I want to know how his locks interfered with the academic process of that school. And then when we look at sports, because it is an extracurricular activity, okay, so the children can be, to some extent, held to a higher standard because it's extracurricular and it's not a mandatory activity. So when I look at the fact that he's a wrestler, I then say, okay, what is it about wrestling? What is it about wrestling? Please mute your phones. You're interrupting my call. Mute your phones. What is it about wrestling that precludes him from being able to wear locks? Because I know a lot of black wrestlers who wear locks. Now, a lot of people brought up the situation or the fact that, when you wrestle, you're supposed to wear a hairnet. He didn't have his hairnet. Well, guess what? If he don't have his hairnet, he either go gets one, you get one for him, somebody should be able to access one. Or if I'm the coach, I simply say, listen, come talk to me, young man. They want you to cut your hair. This is only one match. It may cost us
Hello?
But the decision. Yes, mute your phone. Somebody's talking. Mute your phone, man. Mute your phone. So I'm answering the question.
I just wanted to make sure I was okay.
Okay.
This is not recording. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yes, mute your phone. So anyhow, you know, some adult there should have spoke out for the young man. And guess what? School officials, and there's normally at least one school administrator at a sporting event. There's normally a vice principal, there's normally somebody from the district athletics director. There's normally someone from administration present at sporting events. It was that person's responsibility as an official of the district, responsible for upholding not only state policy but district policy. They should have went and said, wait a minute, these decisions, even if they make sense and this one does not, these decisions, even if they made sense and this one did not, cannot be made on the spot. That's not a decision you make on the spot. There's no state policy and there's no school district policy, I'm certain, that allows you to decide on the spot that the young man's hair must be cut. I understand that there was a wrestling match in play, but what this was a serious violation of the young man's First Amendment rights. It was a serious violation to the young man's First Amendment rights to freedom of expression, which includes dress code and hairstyle. And I want all black parents to hear this. Okay? There was a famous court case in America, and I'm forgetting the name of it, with this very thing came up. A group of white students came to school protesting the Vietnam War. They protested the Vietnam War wearing wristbands, and the school suspended or expelled them. And the parents sued, and the kids ultimately won the case. And it was decided upon the fact.
You mentioned the other day?
Yes, the same one. And it was decided upon
not Tinker.
Yes, and it was decided upon the fact that even though they were protesting Vietnam, they have a right to do that because students bring their First Amendment rights with them into the school. I need people to mute their phones. Too much background noise, too much moving. Mute your phones, please. Y'all know the rules. The case was the Tanker case was decided upon the fact that although they were protesting Vietnam, the wristbands they wore protesting the Vietnam War did not disrupt the school function at all. It did not disrupt the academic process. There was no evidence that those children wearing anti-Vietnam War wristbands in any way, shape, or form disrupt the academic process or culture of the school. And the kids won. And so the Tanker case set out a precedent where although schools do have a right, let me be clear, schools do have a right to infringe upon a child's First Amendment rights to some degree. Although your child brings their constitutional rights with them into the school, there are conditions. So, for example, if that First Amendment right interferes with the academic process or culture of the school, they can stop them. So, for example, if your child goes to school and has a T-shirt saying that they dislike feminists, or they dislike people of a certain sexual orientation, okay, although they have a First Amendment right, wearing that shirt is going to be extremely offensive to children who participate in alternative sexual lifestyles. So the school can make your child take that shirt off. Why? Because it is disrupting the academic process. The children of different orientations are upset. They're angry. They're flipping out. They're threatening to walk out of school. That T-shirt is disrupting the academic environment of this school. So in that case, yes, they can stop them. It's like a white kid who goes to an all-black school and they walk in and say Black Lives Don't Matter on the T-shirt, or White Lives Matter. Let's say they have on a White Lives Matter shirt. To all the black kids in the school, that might signal a disrespect to the Black Lives Matter campaign. That can cause fights, it can cause protests, it can cause walkouts. So guess what? They can make them take that shirt off. Your child does have First Amendment rights, but those First Amendment rights cannot interfere with the academic process. Getting back to the wrestler, okay? There's no school policy that says you can't wear locks. They even said he wrestled with the locks before. And then the question came up, well, he needed a net. Okay, if he needed a net, get one. And if he don't, you tell the child to miss the match. My biggest issue here Second to the fact they violated his First Amendment rights, freedom to expression, and then they violated state law and school policy by making a decision on the spot. You cannot make a decision about a child's dress code on the spot. There's a process that goes through that. In addition, here's the other important thing. Even when you make a rule about dress code and hair, let's say the district did have a policy on dress code and hair. Even if they had a policy against wearing locks, if that policy discriminates against a particular culture, if that policy was created to control the behavior of children of a particular culture, then it's unconstitutional. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. So even if they find something that says you cannot wear locks, if they are only applying that rule to black children and it's not being universally applied. So in other words, I would even question whether they can say you cannot wear locks, because locks is an African hairstyle. No other people can really wear locks. They try to, but locks is an African hairstyle. So if the policy says locks in particular, to me, that's cultural. Mute your phones, please. Come on now. So to me, that signals cultural discrimination against blacks. Now, if they say you cannot wear long hair or hair beneath the ear or hair down to the neck or something like that, that's different, because now that's general. So whether you're black or white, your hair can only be 5 inches long. That's general. But when you name a specific hairstyle of a specific culture, it's unconstitutional. Now, let me conclude by saying this on this point. I believe black parents are going to have to, and maybe this will be done through our organization, the National Independent Black Parent Association. Black parents are probably going to have to put together a class action lawsuit. The same lawsuit that the parents in the tanker case put forward back in the Vietnam era, we're going to have to put forward in the Trump era. Because this isn't the first example of kids being excluded from school, kept from school because of black hairstyles and black dress, which is clearly protected by First Amendment, which clearly says you can't make them change the clothes of their hair unless it violates the academic process of your school, which clearly says even if you make dress code and hair policy decisions, it cannot discriminate against a certain culture. I've been seeing like a dozen cases where the black child's constitutional rights are being violated. So I think it's going to be time to start battling a lot of this stuff in the courts. Black parents are going to have to go through the courts, and we're going to have to go to the courts to make sure that we get the courts to reaffirm that you cannot control the hairstyle and dress code of black children if you don't have proof that it violates the academic process. Now, I did hear that that particular coach was either fired or banned from coaching. Okay, it was either fired or banned from coaching. The referee, whatever the case may be. But it's not just the referee's fault. It's not just the ref. There were school officials there who didn't do anything. The referee is not an official in the larger sense. He is on the lower sense of being a sports referee, but there were other people of the school who I would consider more responsible for what happened to that young man. And I know it's quick for us to say he shouldn't have cut his hair. It's quick for us to say, he should have called his parents, but we got to understand something. Peer pressure is heavy. Peer pressure, and you couple peer pressure with the pressure that comes from white power. Take peer pressure and then take peer pressure and couple that with the pressure of white power. And so you are on a team which is probably mostly white. The team is probably mostly white. And you're going to be the reason why they lost this match. Children want to fit in. Children want to be liked. And black children in particular, because of our heritage of inferiority complexes that we carry, we really want to fit in with white kids. We really would have been approved. We really want to be approved of by white folks. So this kid is not only looking at disappointing the coach, disappointing the school, he's looking at disappointing his white peers who he is trying so hard to fit in with. So I'm not going to criticize him at all. He's a child. He should have never been put in a position. He should have never. Mute your phone. Stop talking on my call, please. Mute your phones. Mute your phones.
He's a child. He should have never been put.
Somebody got me on speaker. Take me off speaker. Come on, family. Come on. Come on. I'm hearing the repeat because you got me. Come on. So he should have never been put in a position where he had to do that. No child should ever be asked to cut their hair for the sake of the team. It was unconstitutional. It was racist, and it's going to keep on. Okay, I'm getting feedback. Somebody got me on speaker. Can we get me off speaker? Can we close out the year right?
It was racist, and it's going to keep on.
Okay.
Please mute your phones.
Mute your phones. Come on, black people. Why can't we worse than our children? We worse than our children. Take me off of speaker. You're causing feedback. Stop trying to be sneaky. Take me off of speaker. You cannot have me on speaker. You're giving me feedback because I have you on speaker. Okay?
Right.
All right. So, was that it for your question, Sister Kalia?
It does, but just one last part really quickly. Why does it seem, Dr. Umar, like specific, well, I guess it's all parents, but definitely black parents, almost become so docile and zombie-like when our children are playing sports for these racist schools? When things start happening that are nowhere even near the extreme of the young boy who was forced to get his hair cut, it's almost like, I guess they might need the scholarship or something so badly, they sit by worshiping football or whatever sport it is, and they watch their children. It's almost like they're just seconds away from chattel slavery, you know, and coaches and ADs and all types of people are disrespecting the children and degrading types of ways, and it's almost like the parents feel reluctant to exercise their authority as parents. Like, what is that? You think it's because
I don't think it's just sports.
Scholarship or something?
I don't think it's just sports. I wouldn't limit it to just sports. I think sports is a more extreme example of it because, unfortunately, we live in a community where our boys are socialized based on their ability to perform physically. It's ironic that although we're about to conclude our 4th century under white oppression in this country, black men are still valued based on their physical assets and physical labor. It hasn't changed since slavery. What is the difference between LeBron James and a black man on the plantation? What is the difference between, a Cam Newton and any black man who was a slave on a plantation 200-300 years ago? The only difference is that LeBron and Cam Newton, there we go again. Somebody got me on speaker again. There we go again. Anyhow, the only difference between LeBron James and Cam Newton and some enslaved Africans. Take me off of the speaker. It causes feedback.
The only difference between LeBron James and Cam Newton and
Oh my God. So slow.
Sad, very sad. But anyhow, the only difference between the black athletes and enslaved Africans is today they pay them for the labor. They pay them for the labor. Before, we were not paid for the labor. LeBron James is paid a handsome ransom for his labor. Cam Newton is paid a handsome ransom for his labor. But let us be clear. Black men are still valued for their physical labor. It is still your ability to physically labor that determines your wealth in the American social order. That's why they incarcerate black men so they can do what? Exploit our labor in prison camps for corporate America. Black men are still only worth as much as their physical labor can cultivate for the white power structure. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And unfortunately, black mothers and fathers are still socializing black men to determine their worth based on what? Physical labor. How did the slave master determine your worth? Physical labor. How does the NFL determine your worth? Physical labor. Even the colleges of America. Most black males who get scholarships to college are not given academic scholarships. They're given athletic scholarships. And the reason they're given athletic scholarships is based on what? Their physical labor. Their ability to participate in a particular physical activity. Basketball, football, picking cotton, curing rum, refining sugar. It is still about physical labor to this very day. So it's not just about parents of sports. All black parents are docile. They're docile when it comes to
It is still about physical labor.
That might be Gerald Palmer doing that. That might be Gerald Palmer or Michelle Stewart. I think that's one of them on the line. Thank you, Khalil, for the call. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, then they're even more professional than what we originally thought. But thank you so much for that, Dr. Umar. Very much.
Thank you.
Okay.